And hello everyone, it is Peter Sam the Narrow Gauge Engine here. Today I'll be re-ranking Season 6, a very shit-upon season, and one I personally think does not deserve it. Visuals are not the best, I must agree. But the story, the comedy, and the things it's capable of are amazing. Thomas and Friends changed at this point, and I don't think it was a negative one like most do. Nevertheless, we must begin with the negatives at number 26, Middle Engine. Well, shit, this does not prove my point. Middle Engine is atrocious, quite frankly. I think it tries to be funny and fails, that's what lets it down. The idea of an engine stuck in between two trains is amusing in concept, but since the visuals are so shit, you already know they fucked that idea up. But even then, the way it's written makes it only appeal to the lowest common denominator, infants. And then there's that one thing that everyone, including me, mentions when they talk about Middle Engine. The Fat Controller's an arsehole for not trusting Percy, an engine with not the best record, but I still think he should have trusted his engine.
Number 25, Buffer Bother. What is Bill in this episode? The writers tried developing Bill's character a bit and just ended up making him a douche. Why? His twin separation story is so boring and is done better in other seasons, this one especially, but we'll get to that one. Bill is such a sulky dickhead and it's unfunny, except for when the pipe falls into his funnel. Is that how much I hate Bill? I have to see him endure physical pain to laugh. There's plenty of funny episodes in season 6 and this ain't it, Chief. Number 24, Thomas, Percy and the Squeak. Oh no, it doesn't get better, does it? We all know this episode for the screaming. You know, that screaming. It has an okay moral, but again, it tries to be funny and fails for me. You know why? Because this episode is aimed at toddlers, and it definitely shows. Thomas and Percy are so blatantly appealing to 3-year-old Timmy, so much so that Gordon, you know, the other side character in this episode, is the best part. Even the ending's just okay, and in a season known for the cheesy, heartwarming endings, that is really bad. This episode needs to get back to the gutter.
Number 23, It's Another Tie, everyone. It's Only Snow and James of the Red Balloon are both very unappealing episodes in their own right and are so level on the playing field of bad season 6 episodes that it hurts. But they both have some good stuff too. It's Only Snow has these gorgeous snowy sets and a plot that makes sense, but then again James and the Red Balloon is more comedic and has these amazing shots of the balloon flying high in the sky which are pretty immersive. However, the downfalls are really bad. It's Only Snow has this recurring plot of Thomas not wanting to wear his snowplow, which is so old that it's stale. Just anything but this stupid plot, please. But James and the Red Balloon has a plot that's nonsensical. How is James that stupid to think that all of his passengers will be taken by something that's so cramped just because he's red? His character is ruined. James is just a bull at this point, I think. However, I think I'm going to give this episode the edge because the balloon peacefully drifting through the sky is amazing, especially paired with the beautiful themes season 6 has to offer. Number 21, Jack Frost.
Scary Jack Frost, cried James.
Yeah, this one's kind of It's not outwardly bad, but it is a snore fest. There's some nice model work here, but we all know this episode exists purely so 3-year-old Timmy can get his hands on his own wooden railway Jack Frost Percy. Also, why isn't this episode about Jack? Remember Jack? The one introduced not 10 episodes ago, the Digger? Yeah, me neither. But he should have been the actual Jack Frost in this episode, instead of tricking me into thinking this episode was not going to be about Thomas, James or Percy for once. Number 20, Percy and the Haunted Mine. This story's a load of season 8 style nonsense and the ending's barely passable, but I can actually give an episode some praise now. Yay. The set work here is pretty decent. We're talking some season 5 stuff. That building just sunk into the ground. However, the stupid gnome stuff is totally ridiculous and isn't at all humorous or entertaining. I'm not saying this episode's amazing or anything, but it has one great redeeming quality, and that's enough for me to put it here. Number 19, Edward the Very Useful Engine. When you have to resort to making a character just referred to as a back engine for his one episode this season, despite being a reliable hero that would do anything for the good of his railway, his home, you're doing something wrong. It takes a lot of determination for Edward to be the back engine of 2 engines at once, for sure. But then again, did we really have to do this plot at all? Of all the episodes to copy the format from out of the previous seasons, you go and pick Edward and Gordon, not Old Iron or Edward's Exploit. Even Bertie's Chase was better than this, and you pick it. Why? This returning episode about Edward could have been so much more than just Edward being a really good back engine, but alas, it wasn't.
Number 18, A Bad Day for Harold the Helicopter. If you guys know me, you might know I despise Harold. He's this arrogant, smug-sounding pilot asshole, and is just mainly a device for rescuing the engines. He's even more arrogant in this episode when he takes the mail from Percy. The climax is alright, crashing into a pile of hay isn't the most exciting thing, but then again, Harold being a helicopter makes him limited as to what he can crash into. The ending is superb though, with Percy putting aside his rivalry to help Harold, and the pair making it up sweetly at the sheds. Season 6 has some great episode endings, and this is no exception. Although I think from now on, I won't think of this as a poor Harold episode, but rather an exceptional Percy episode. Number 17, Elizabeth the Vintage Lorry. This episode is another alright one. Elizabeth is a well-written, cynical character that is done well even in the Season 8 episode she appears in, which is saying a lot. She's stubborn, a great source of humour, and sarcastic. However, this episode needs a major rewrite and feels very first draft. The opening is great with Thomas's crew finding Elizabeth and them conversing, then it becomes really dull. Elizabeth getting Thomas the parts he needs doesn't feel drawn out enough, and I think Elizabeth should have broken down or something so Thomas can help her and the pair's feud can be resolved. I have a bunch of ideas for how this episode should be improved upon, and maybe I'll make a full video either making my own version or at least explaining how this episode might work in my head. It's so unfortunate that it's so first draft because I think it could have been really good. Number 16, The Fogman. There is some clear, outstanding set design with this one, which is applause-worthy. The beautiful valley, the mist, and just the sets in general are great, and not just in this episode either, despite it having some great ones. The moral here is one I can also stand by, despite it being a bit ham-fisted. However, apart from that, it's very basic. The crash, the annoying foghorn, and Percy not understanding what it is, and the concept alone is just a bit basic and dabbles in some hit error stuff that displeases me. But the ending's cute, so it's not all bad. It was an earnest attempt of an episode. Number 15, Harvey to the Rescue. Harvey's a little innocent fella, and is wrongfully shunned by the engines, even Edward, which is weird because Thomas, you know, the one that has been known to stoop to the lowest level on occasion, is the one to root for him. Edward and Thomas need to do some major switcheroo here. Again, most of it is fine in your standard Thomas the Tank Engine episode. I like Harvey's design a lot, and Cranky and Salty give us a nice beginning, but overall, it's pretty average. Number 14, Rusty Saves the Day. I find people give this one a bit too much slack, another example of how wronged Season 6 is in general. Yes, lore-wise, it is strange and quite odd, that was until CGI narrow gauge, but as a base episode, it's a really sweet one. Rusty tries to help his friends because he knows their line is special to them. What a lad. Elizabeth is brought into the episode as well to add some flair as it began slowing down, which I think was a wise decision. She's quite sardonic in nature, which adds some humour. Can people please start leaving this one alone? It has its problems for sure, but that's no reason to start overlooking the beautiful positives it has going for it and the heartfelt message beneath the surface.
Number 13, Dunkin Duncan. Extremely cool crash aside, this episode's okay. Duncan kamikazing himself is the obvious highlight, but then there's the simple, familiar Duncan wrong, Rusty right dynamic that I'm so done with at this point. Why do they never flip this on its head and make Duncan the one in the right for once? That's something I want to see. The base concept lets this episode down for me, and it's a shame Duncan is often shown like this, no matter how amusing the crashes are, and no matter how funny moments like this make the episode funny.
Glug, glug, glug. He said, "Bluggle my broiler." Duncan felt foolish and very wet.
Number 12, No Sleep for Cranky. Often when I talk about Season 6's brilliant humour, I'll be talking about this episode. No Sleep for Cranky is hilarious. The music and faces just add so much to Angelus's narration, and the way they flow with how the episode transpires is done beautifully. Usually I have a problem with staying in one location all of the time, but here I don't. Cranky is trapped with Salty, Bill and Ben, and we get to be there so we can relate more to Cranky in the end as his desperation wears thin. There isn't really a problem with this episode, except I just found it not as good as the others higher up. Number 11, Twin Trouble. This one surprised me. This is definitively a better version of Buffer Bother and the best Scottish twin episode of the classic series in my opinion. Why? Because it puts conflict their way and because they're not kids. The problem with having Bill and Ben do a conflict episode like with One Good Turn or Buffer Bother is that they're childish, and in the end they become ridiculously annoying. Donald and Douglas seem more stubborn and weary, so yes, it's still annoying, but the pair know when to put their feud aside because they still love each other. I never got that in Buffer Bother, sadly.
Number 10, Scaredy Engines. Rounding out our top 10 is Scaredy Engines. I love the moral dilemma Percy's presented with here. To console Thomas, who has been scared half to death, or stay with Duck, who stopped Thomas from bullying him. This is a great test for Percy, as he ends up choosing the former, a better decision, which gives us a beautiful ending with some fireworks and some heartwarming feels. But the best scene of this episode is Thomas spooked by the whistle and the chains in the beautifully decorated scrapyard. The set and the story that happens here is great, funny, eerie, and just one of a multitude of reasons why I think season 6 is so underrated. Number 9, Faulty Whistles. I don't understand why people hate this episode just because it follows the same beats as Mike's whistle. I do prefer this episode to Mike's whistle for a few reasons, the first of which is that Duncan is the main character, a choice that is pretty smart as Rusty doesn't have a starring role. Yes, a Duncan episode where Duncan's foolish and Rusty's not really around. Thank the Lord above. Also, the gimmick of the organ instead of the passengers yelling is a much more entertaining improvement. I'd rather have the nice toots of an organ as opposed to some screaming any day. Regardless, people need to stop shitting on this one because it's one of the few Duncan episodes where Rusty isn't paired alongside him, a much needed change to the narrow gauge. Number 8, Jack Jumps In. Jack Jumps In is a welcome and diverse change into the series, with Thomas and the rest of the engines taking a back seat and having this new group of construction vehicles take the spotlight. Within the short runtime, what amazes me is how fleshed out and identifiable these guys are. Jack is the excited new guy ready to help out wherever he can, Oliver is the quiet giant type character, Elizabeth loves keeping her image maintained, Max is an uncaring bully, and so on and so forth. There's a nice crash here, a bit on the tamer side, but this is an introductory episode after all. There's one moment here that really sticks out for me, however, and that is the moment Max does a 360 that reveals this horrifying grin that almost makes it seem like his smile is stuck. It's creepy as shit.
Hello, children.
That's fucking creepy.
Hello, children.
Number 7, Salty Secret. Of course this is going to be high up on the list. Salty Secret is an iconic episode complete with this fun, developed character that is a diesel and is nice. They completely demonstrate his wants, his desires, his allegiances and his worries within this short little episode, and it's impressive how they managed to do that. The story is a simple case of Salty wants to be by the sea and isn't, so works hard to try and gain that privilege and succeeds. This also presents a really good moral that I don't see a lot of kids shows tackle, to be fair. Working hard can get you what you want. So this episode sticks a lot more to me than it did a year ago, as I'm a kid just trying to gain some qualifications over here. Number 6. Now, ties usually occur at the back end of my lists, and are usually once every few seasons or so, but season 6 is fucking mental, and I just can't decide which is better. The World's Strongest Engine and Thomas the Jet Engine are both equally as amazing, and it's going to be tough to choose. The World's Strongest Engine brings us Diesel. In his stupidity, he tries pulling as many trucks as Henry, and ends up shooting himself onto a barge, special attraction style. What I love here is the build-up. Diesel is such a force to be reckoned with, and seeing the long scene where we anticipate whether he will succeed or fail is so interesting. I'd say maybe the crash is a bit of an anticlimax, but it fits with the episode perfectly. Thomas the Jet Engine, on the other hand, is 5 minutes of wacky, fast-paced energy that leaves you so thrilled. Thomas is to pull a jet engine which starts up when Cranky knocks it, and so Thomas flies across Sodal, passing Percy and Gordon, giving us 2 of the funniest lines in the series. I'll put them here.
Want a race, Thomas? Beat Bertie? Never mind. Hi, Gordon. Bye, Gordon.
This humbles Gordon in the process, even if it's a lesson he already learned. It's fairly obvious this episode is a bit of a stepping stone for him. The sequence maybe goes on for a bit too long, but it's still fun and entertaining regardless. So which one do I prefer? Probably Thomas the Jet Engine. It has more pros like the iconic lines and the great segments, but again I'll probably change my mind tomorrow. Number 4, A Friend in Need. A great expansion to the pack, this episode has an amazing reach into Jack's character and ties up all of the things left unconfirmed in the last episode. Jack's bravery here is great to see, and I think that some of the other pack members that didn't get as much of a chance to shine previously got that here. For instance, Ned is around this time and is shown to be a real klutz. Kelly is also demonstrated to be the natural leader of the bunch, whereas last time he was just a sensible crane. And do we even need to speak of that amazing bridge collapse? Everyone knows that's a highlight of the season. The episode also has one of those gushy, mushy, heartwarming endings that I love about season 6 and 7, and it's probably one of my favourite endings of the series because it's so beautifully done. Number 3, Gordon Takes a Tumble. The most infamous crash of the series has got a pretty decent story to tag along with it too. Everyone here is perfect, there's perfect character, perfect story, and everything just fits very snugly. I think Salty so easily forgiving Gordon at the end is such a testament as to what kind of character he is and just how genuine he is. I think this is one of these episodes where you just have to watch it to understand how good it is. Mere words cannot display the greatness of it. So after this, go and watch the feckin' thing. Thanks. Number 2, Toby Had a Little Lamb. If Toby and the Flood showed Toby's bravery, this episode damn well shows
Toby's determination. Toby willingly goes out into a snowstorm along his old, extremely hazardous branch line to save some lambs. What a hero! This is why Toby is such a good character. He may look old and outdated, but he is in fact a determined and caring tramp that will cross the pits of hell to help someone. He even offers his own coach for the lambs to sleep in despite it being his most faithful one. What a saint! This episode does great lengths for Toby's character, but it also has great sets and special effects and a decent story with some climax and a touching resolve. One of the series' greats for definite. Number 1, Percy's Chocolate Crunch. I think if you've watched my content for a long time, you'll know that Percy's Chocolate Crunch is the pinnacle of nostalgia for me and my favourite episode of the entire show's history. This isn't completely nostalgia based though. I do have some good reasons as to why I believe it's so good. For instance, the use of Percy being the one that wants a washdown really breaks the stereotype that James is the only one that cares about being clean. Also, it's pretty funny. I think Percy's reactions to being made dirtier and dirtier are pretty amusing, especially with Angelus's narration. The crash and gimmick from it are pretty entertaining too, but the best part of this whole episode is that ending. We all know I love a heartwarming ending, and this is my favourite, unsurprisingly. The music, the narration, and Percy's joyful expression just fills me with so much wholesome energy it's hard not to love. Just the best. So that was season 6, a truly overhated season and one with my favourite episode of all time on there. It has a few massive duds for sure, but it has some greats as well. People are probably going to be commenting about the visuals down below, and I'll address that right now. Visuals are the cop-out to have this season under season 1. Sure, the visuals are quite poor in places, but the story, humour and model work should leave people having enjoyed the ride, not whining about the look of it. Let's stop hating season 6 and look upon the great things it gives us. Anyway, I'll see you all next time. Bye bye.